What up, buddy?
What's happening, brother?
Not too much, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
You feeling better?
Just Yeah, man. I'm able to take some dabs. I'm still coughing a little bit, but it's a lot better than it was. So
That's dope, man. That's dope. I saw the garden
yeah.
tour today. You took something out of rotation, didn't you?
Um, let's see. What did I take out of rotation? There's something in there that's last time. Yeah, the septic tank. That's that happy accident of full melt and lap dance.
Who did the septic tank?
Me.
Oh, that's dope, bro.
Yeah, it was not meant to in any way, shape, or form. I had the lap dance herm next to the full melt, and
Oh,
then
true, true, true. How did you
yeah,
like
so
that?
I popped one.
I have those beans. I never popped them. I've never seen the flower. I've never seen anyone grow them.
Yeah, so I grew them and Humphrey grew them. I'll tell you what, we both had a really similar experience. In that it auto sugars. It gets like a little bit dark. It
Interesting.
must have some volatiles in there. But yeah, every pheno that I pressed auto sugared.
What's the
Like I did a
terp?
little bit of jar tech to it. So
What's the
it
terp like?
was some of it was a bit more on the creamy side than I wanted. The sharper notes were good. It wasn't like as strong in the sour gas as I hoped. I'll put it that way. And that was one that the rosin was way louder than the melt on.
Interesting. I had some fun.
Yeah.
I had a homie send me some just incredible melt from an a GMO S1, so they called it the OMG full term, or not full term. It was depth, but it was just some of the nicest melt, man. Super nice.
Nice. What are you dabbing on tonight?
I'm dabbing on Fruit Joy, the old faithful. My buddy Canadian Dabs just blends it up. Like it's just like candy, bro. It's like if I had unlimited amounts of it, I'd just keep going. And that's the thing. It's not like with a lot of your stuff. Like I found like it would not slow me down, like slow my mind down, but it would like get me so medicated that I was like, yo, I don't need another dab right away. And but
Mhm.
like this stuff, it's like it's not as strong, but it's just like boom, 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 um like you just want to eat it like candy. I'm gonna invite Tom in here.
Nice.
Tom, you get all your homework done? Time for some dabs, Tom?
So
uh, what are you
I went
smoking on?
to shit. I'm hitting some ice cream cake from Kush Kirk.
Oh, damn.
Hmm. It's got a really unique flavor to it. Simple Adam called it anise. I don't quite get that from it, but it's unique and I like ice cream cake, bro. I know that they tried to say that was like the new purple punch because so many people were depping it out west and everything like that. But like, bro, I love a good ice cream cake. I don't care.
Bro, I love ice cream cake, and it gets such a bad rap, and it grows so well, bro. Like,
Yeah. Uh,
so I just
How we doing, Tom?
Good, chilling. I was just thinking I got to try some ice cream cake recently. That was really nice.
Thanks, man.
dope. I think my buddy Buddha's gonna jump in here. Yeah, what up, Buddha? What's going on, man?
Again, this don't work. I don't understand why my headset won't work when I go live.
You gotta figure it out. You need a new headset, bro.
I want to hear you. Fuck. Yeah, I don't think so.
How's your day going, Buddha?
There we go. Is that better? How's my day? Pretty good. Playing with the chickens. Got some new chickens that hatched a couple days ago.
Yeah, I saw you didn't have too good of a hatch rate, hey?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, but what's funny is the ones that did hatch were all black, but they came from birds that I'm pretty sure were not black birds. So it just shows the genetics from the father is super strong. It's like
Interesting.
super expensive fucking Indian chickens. They're all black everywhere.
Yeah.
They were $50 a chick when I bought them, bro. They're like fucking expensive.
Damn.
Yeah.
Is it for like their robustness, their egg laying qualities, like what makes them expensive?
That's their worst qualities is they're small and they only lay so many eggs a year.
So is it like purple weed where it's like what's special about it? And they're just like it's just purple.
It's aesthetically pleasing bird for sure. And yeah, I don't know. The temperament is good. I mean,
That's good.
I don't know. I wanted to get them because of that, because it's like just some super fucking heady shit, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yo, what up, Rackhams?
Oh shit.
Tom,
Rackham's in here.
have you played with directional freezing? Seven Spore was asking about that. I have not.
Yeah. Adam and I were fucking around with it. It's same shit as making clear ice, directionally freezing your ice.
True.
And you know, we were talking yesterday about like the THCA precipitating out. You're controlling it to go through the solution like you would ice. Similar concept.
Have you like made any findings as far as other than aesthetics? Is there anything different?
So what we were trying to do is directionally freezing ice, you're creating a ordered crystalline lattice, right? So what our goal was to get the THCA to homogenize throughout the solution, to be evenly spread throughout the solution. And then I thought would be the terpenes are in the negative of that crystalline structure. So what's been cool is I can directionally freeze it, get it to consistency where it stays the same consistency until you get in there with the tool and whip it. And it looks dry until you stir it, and then it kind of starts looking wet.
And is that like consistent through like multiple cultivars and phenos? You're like, oh, it always starts out dry and then goes wet?
Some profiles react slightly different, like if there's not much THCA or something. But there's definitely been a lot of consistency through it.
That's dope. I haven't played around with that at all. Like, I mean, I think aesthetically it looks really cool, but I have yet to like. Was it Solventless Mind that first put it out? I think that's where I first saw it.
We're messing around with it. We both make clear ice for our wash, and the first coffee and donuts we were talking about it, and then we started playing around with it and shared it. But actually, at the coffee and donuts, Mikey helped with, or MTS helped with the crystalline talk. And the next one, I want to kind of build on it and get into that, get deeper into Mikey's stuff, and try to get more into what is happening.
Mikey, what were you talking about?
So I was talking about a bit more about like jar tech for diamonds and bigger, building bigger structures. The directional freezing is a very fast technique, so it builds, you know, a really like strong lattice or whatever, but it's more like micro diamonds. And I play around with everything from sugar to straight up diamonds and salts.
And
I've ruined a lot of batches. I've done some cooler stuff with cooling afterwards and terp retention and everything, and I think I have a pretty good tech for it.
So Seven Spore was asking about the purpose of clear ice, Tom.
It's denser. So I use clear ice in big ice cubes because it melts slower. So it holds your water at a colder temperature. But then I'm also using your standard drink ice because it melts faster. So you can drop the temp faster. But then the solid ice is going to stay there longer and maintain a cold temp. I don't use it in my wash. I use it in my reservoir.
Interesting.
This stuff they use to like make the big Japanese whiskey ice cubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool.
When I was
But
buying my ice machine, I almost got a Japanese one because it had a very unique cube shape, but it was like almost $2,000 more just for that option. It's like, no, I'm gonna go with this one.
yeah. Yeah, off how Mikey does it. So he's doing large diamonds, which means you're dropping the temperature slower. So I like microcrystalline. I like small because it gives me consistency. I like, but the way Mikey's doing it, you're allowing the crystals to find their place in the lattice, so it's orderly. If you do just a quick drop in temperature, it's kind of just precipitates out where it was. With directionally freezing, it's kind of a mixture where you find order because you're moving through the plane like a 3D printer instead of the whole area dropping out at once. So it can it's able to find its place in a sense.
To me, it reminds me a little bit of if you've ever done batter, like BHO style batter, not by whipping it, but just by laying it, by purging it and letting it nucleate into, it kind of holds that structure. And it almost like the BHO itself will almost look a little bit dry until you manipulate it, and then it'll often get really wet and even have a big terp layer on top. And I find the directional freezing to, I haven't experienced a ton of it, to be a little bit similar to that.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And the original intention was with jar tech, my favorite part is the Hashmaker was cracking the jar and getting that off gassing, getting to stir it and watching that change. So the whole point or the way that I do it's trying to give the customer that experience. So like when I jar tech it, that jar is closed until it reaches the consumer.
Yeah, and for the bigger diamonds, I do, as Tom was saying, I try to change the temperature much slower, and I go from really high to really low. So I'll go from 220, take that to where I want it, and then I'll go to 105 in a scientific oven, and then I slowly bring that down to 90, and then that's about when it's finished with. So I don't know what this curve is called, but there's on a graph where as the curve keeps getting longer, it keeps on flattening out more. Same thing happens with the precipitation of the diamonds after about day 2, where you start getting heavy precipitation. They'll go for about a week after that, and then it'll slow to a real crawl where you're not seeing really any more separation, any more stuff taking place. That's why I take it down to 90. I leave it there for a little bit, and then after that, I go room temp, fridge, freezer, dry ice, freezer, fridge, room temp, crack.
Damn, Mikey, that's crazy.
Bro, I've gotten some insane terp retention on diamonds, and like a lot of this stuff was R&D'd with like 4th wash, 5th wash, so you're not talking about great starting material already.
Yeah.
And now I'm at the point where I feel completely comfortable doing it on 1st wash, as long as I've done it to that cultivar before and know that's one of the ones that won't be negatively affected by heat, because it's definitely a thing that can happen.
And how do you know, like, is it like recognizing monoterps that tell you that that's a cultivar that isn't going to be like how are you able to differentiate, like, oh, that's not one that's going to work
Right.
here?
So the way you're able to differentiate it is by fucking some up and learning what happens when you do. So pretty much every cultivar, my first one, I'll take like some of the last shittiest stuff and I'll heat tech it. And that usually gives me a really good idea of if it's gonna come out better or not. And that's like budget. It's not coming out under my brand, or like it's not coming out labeled for me or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's gonna be super, super cheap to the end user regardless. It's like if it fucks it up, it's still a good bargain for them. If it makes it amazing, then they got some awesome stuff at a really good price.
Have you found a correlation between, like, oh, like hot, like like, for example, like as hash makers, we know stuff high in limonene doesn't, necessarily wash as well. What up, Dutch? So many legends in the room, by the way. Rackham's, what up, man? I saw Harry
So
here, but yeah, anyway, Yeah, have you correlated that like with like we did
Uh,
with limonene?
to a point. I mean, anything that's on like the creamy spectrum, you know what I mean? Like a Sunday driver that's more like on the cereal milk type terps, like anything that's in that kind of mild spectrum, usually you lose the terps off of that. Like a creamy papaya does really poor with heat tech in my experience. Um, Kind of like the medium spec stuff too, like that's in between. Like the pie eye didn't do great because it was just a little gas, little sweet, little fruit, but like not too strong in anything.
Hmm.
Um,
Have
yeah.
you what have you had that's like amped up? Like for example, like we had that cheese quake that's like we both agreed was better jammed than cold cured. Have you had stuff that you're like, yo, this is so obviously better in this form?
So yeah, and speaking of, it was actually on a really my most recent one was on a really gassy profile like that. It was the one that you got to try, the gas
The
mix.
gas mix? Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yes. So that does great with heat. Like it changes the terps, but it increases like I just call it a sharpness. But whatever it is, like you know those terps, you know, your GMO, like your crazy strong papaya,
Yeah.
your tangy, even though I hate orange terps, you know what I mean? Like those are sharp terps. Like you are tasting them throughout the entire thing. Um, and even those, like sometimes better with heat, sometimes destroyed by heat.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah.
That's so interesting too. Like I would like assume like on a gassy profile like that, like I would if you were to like yeah, pick one of my jars that you smoked that would have transferred, it would gas mix would have been like the last one because like I've always had trouble keeping those uh gas profiles around. Like I've that's been my biggest challenge when I've made my own hash. So I think that that actually surprises me a lot.
I have some
Yeah.
Donny burger that when I do the heat tech too, it starts out tasting like a burger with all the condiments, and then it changes into like butterscotch. It like smooths out the flavor in a nice way. And I think you're losing the like sesquiterpenes, but it kind of I don't know. I like the change.
You
Yeah, we
wouldn't you be
definitely had
losing the
some
monos?
good results with the ice cream cake we ran for solventless diamonds or for like E-Tech sauce, I guess they're calling it, not jam. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, the flavor went right through. Like I tried, like I know what it was like as pre-cured the same run, and then we did a heat tech on it, and it was yeah, it's really nice. I got
Interesting.
blasted when we tried it. Yeah, because that's very gassy, but at least that cut, that's the original Skittle Pot cut. The first
Yeah,
one that
no,
Something
was
else.
going around Canada. Then he had another one they found in number 12 not too long ago. But I don't know who's
Something
running
else
that.
that
I'm guessing a lot of people in Toronto or Ontario.
But yeah, something else that I tried for like if you have something that's coming out really dry and you want to wet batter tech it, but you know that the terps are gonna get kind of destroyed with that. So split it into two sections. Even split is usually best. You can maybe go 40% on the one that you're gonna heat tech. So heat tech that, take it a little bit further than regular, cold cure the other one, then mix them and
oh
like you'll still
shit.
get that turkey tension and you'll get the wet batter. I call it the preserve tech. Like if you look back on my page, you'll see it and it looks good.
That's
Yeah, but our
awesome.
strawberries and cream, it's super dry. But I killed the strain a couple weeks ago, so we won't be running it anymore. But the terps don't. The terps are crazy, but it's like just super dry. Turns into
Didn't
like chalk.
did you run the Donny burger? Or what burger varietal did you run, Buddha?
Triple burger.
The triple burger, and that was and you didn't find anything there, right?
It wasn't that. It was more just the. I think we got two plants, two like females out of the pack.
Oh
One
wow.
was like a mega runt,
Mhm.
like it just runted, and the other one just wasn't. It wasn't something phenomenal enough to keep around. It
Yeah,
hashed quite well, but the strain itself, I was like, I was kind of pissed. Obviously, when you only have, I mean, it's the worst when you only have one to pick from, but when you have two, it's almost as bad as having none. I feel like because you're not gonna ever, unless you have tried it, you know what you're looking for, and you're like, oh yeah, I found it, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like I feel like you're gonna, unless you get lucky, you're gonna more than likely get not the best.
Yeah.
You never know though. I mean, shit. I have buddies who they pop one pack and all they find is bangers. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but with this and with the triple burger, it was like one runt and one okay,
Yeah.
but not worth keeping. And I even gave that to my boy, and every time he tried to clone it, it kept runting on him as well. So I don't know. I still have a pack though.
Still got a pack to look through. Mikey, when you dropped that preserve technology, everybody just, I don't know if you could see the chat, but it just like blew up.
Dope, man. Yeah. If you're on my page, go check it out. It comes out really nice. So
Have you used that? Like, have you tried that? Is that a tried and true, like across multiple varietals type thing, or is it
so
something that you're just working with?
generally where that has come from is me fucking up something that's really good. Like if I did take a first wash and jar teched it, I took it that just hair too far. Like if I have another like a second wash that I cold cured, that's especially if it's already cold cured and that jar is still kind of warm, so it's still very viscous, like, and I can just mash them in together. And the first time I did that, it came out amazing. And so then after that, like I was just like, oh, maybe I should do this on purpose sometimes. Like every time I've done it, it's come out better than the dry rosin alone.
Yeah. Yo, Tom, can you talk a little bit about the freeze dryer research that you've been doing and the data that you've been analyzing? I think that stuff's so fucking cool, man.
Yeah, I've been, well, back in like 2015, 16, I was playing around with a lot of distillation, and I had a talk with Mark Scaldone. I was DMing him and asking him, when I'm under vacuum, how do I find the boiling point, right? Because everywhere I was reading, a vacuum lowers your boiling point. And that's something that a lot of people don't take into account when they're freeze drying and setting their shelf temp, that the boiling point of water isn't actually 32 degrees in your freeze dryer. If you're at 400 mTOR, it's negative 40 Fahrenheit. So it's you can set your shelves right and really dial in, and with all that knowledge, you can like figure out what all the terpenes boiling points are, where you need to sit, so you're optimizing, you're freeze drying at a quick rate, but you're not risking losing terpenes.
So like basically narrowing the window of fluctuation that you're exposing the material to.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? Yeah. Okay.
It's not like you're not losing the terpenes. Like they're volatilizing, but they're not boiling until all the water's gone.
Yeah.
So like, if you're setting your shelf temp to 40 Fahrenheit, 32 Fahrenheit, whatever, as long as you pull it out once the water's gone and you don't let it keep drying, your hash is going to be fine. But if you can lower your shelf temp once the water's all gone, you don't have to rush to get it out. You can have a little bit of wiggle room where you might let it go 2 extra hours to ensure it's dry. But then if you set your everything right, you're not going to be losing terpenes, potentially. Unless you're Mikey and want to lose limonene, and I could help with that too.
Right? Yeah, thanks, Phil. Get rid of the lemon terps forever.
I think that's really cool, man. I know Colin's looked into this stuff. I mean, flatten the curve. I mean, I know what he's saying. Like, that makes a lot of sense to me. So I think that, it was always like when, your first run on the freeze dryer and you empty the water out and you just smell the water and you're just like, shouldn't smell like that. I want that in the hash. So,
yeah.
I think that's super cool, man.
It's been fun. People have been sending me their data, and I've been trying to stay on top of it. I still have to do it for Gingerlarf and Mikey, graphing their data. It's on my desktop. But it's been cool to see how each unit runs and like the variances in each one. It's kind of crazy.
What's the variance from machine to machine? How big a difference are you seeing?
Mikey's unit, he says, usually sits around 400 mTOR.
Yeah.
Mine's usually around 200. I wish I was at 400. And then some of the newer units I've seen go down to like 100, even like 50 mTOR.
And why do you wish you were at 400 over 200?
Because at 400, pinene, which is one of the more volatiles, is boiling off, I believe, at 14 Fahrenheit. So I can set my shelf temp minimum on my unit to 5 Fahrenheit because I have an older one. So I'm sitting below the point of pinene. I'm still above humulene because that's really close to the boiling point of water. So that one is, if you're going to preserve that, it's just not over drying.
What terp is that for the common man?
The humulene? Or what? Which one?
The other one. The one below it.
Pinene would be like pine smelling. Yeah.
I got to take note now. Next run we do what my mTOR gets to or goes at.
Yeah, if you
It's like a 2-year-old pharmaceutical.
Hell yeah, that's where mine's at. I guess mine's 4 years now. Fuck.
2000. Yeah, spring of 2000.
Do you know how low you can set your shelf temp?
I could go look.
And then when you look at your data, you can also export it. So when you turn your unit off, plug a USB in, and then flip it on, and you'll see your screen saying like exporting to USB. And you can open the file that's on the USB in an Excel document, and it's kind of confusing, but you can usually work out what's what.
Does it have so basically it has every run?
Yeah.
Oh, sick. So
yeah, there's a data logger on the unit.
You can actually know how many runs I've done, and that's dope.
Yeah. You'll also see some of the runs that the company did to test it.
Interesting.
And I have a couple of those like graphed out because when you look at it as data, it's kind of confusing. But if you take the time to actually graph it, it's a lot easier to see what's happening.
I think that dialing in all those little things, like that's what, gives us the competitive edge and, makes the hash that much better. And like, that's who, who's paying attention to these things is, really seeing. So I think that's super dope that you're watching that, man. I'm very excited.
Did you get to check out the ones that I sent you at all?
Not yet. I've looked at them. I haven't graphed them yet.
I'm really wondering if you see anything interesting in there, like, because mine used to get down to a similar mTOR as Humphrey's, and then I did the thing where my freeze dryer is flush mounted into my cold room. I just, to keep the heat out and everything like that. But even just pulling the tray out, because my pressing room is in a basement, that would suck in moisture and have issues getting it through the sieve, sometimes a little bit of auto buttering on the press, everything like that. So even just pulling it out, walking 2 feet into the room was too much. I had to flush mount it. But I didn't have enough space on the side of it, and I heated it up too much a couple times, and at one point it got to where it couldn't even pull 400 mTOR. So I had to change some things in there, and now it just sits at like 400, regardless of if it's too hot or in perfect condition or what. Which, after initially I was mad at, but after Humphrey told me all the science behind it, I was just like, oh, so I broke it perfectly.
Yep. Don't fix that.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting graphing out, or like I have a chart of all these terpenes at different vacuum points, and that's in the coffee and donuts presentation I did, which we hope to do more of those. It's interesting looking at it compared to atmospheric pressure, because you can see why air drying sometimes can create a terpier product because the boiling points are high. and we're sitting down at like a temperature of hopefully like 50 to 60 degrees when we're drying our hash, air drying. But the boiling points are up above like 200 Fahrenheit. So there's this big gap. But then in the freeze dryer, you're more likely to volatilize because you're closer to the boiling points of them. So it's
you're playing
kinda
closer.
interesting.
You're playing closer to those. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's the scientific one is the only one that you can actually adjust your mTOR, right?
I didn't know that. I have a pharma.
I feel like you can because
That's cool. That's awesome.
I feel like you can because I've heard.
Yeah, I cannot adjust my mTOR, and I do not have a pharma.
I've been working on something that'll hopefully allow me to kind of like dial in my mTOR.
Fuck is her name? Who's the Hashmaker? She plays the fucking steel pan drum.
Oh,
on a blank. Why can't I think of her name?
The Dank Duchess.
Yeah, Dank Duchess. I remember her talking about setting or altering or doing something with her mTOR, and I was like, yeah, that's way above my understanding of the freeze dryer right now. And that was like a while back.
I mean, it makes sense to me where like more tasty melt is made air dried properly than freeze dried properly. Like that makes sense to me, and like it didn't used to. And
Does that mean now more cultivars have a larger potential of being a melt if you're air drying for melt?
If you're freeze drying right, I would say equal potential.
Yeah, what Two Terpy just said you can buy a vacuum regulator.
So I looked into this with a buddy, and the company said it couldn't regulate at 400 mTOR. I think the vacuum that low is difficult. Maybe there's others.
Interesting.
But,
and then Dutch, who's been, making hash in the background longer than most, is saying that you can just mess with the plumber's tape.
huh, okay.
That's crazy. I believe it, man. Those machines, like my machine is finicky. Like I've had some issues with it for sure, and it's I think it's good now, but you just one day, those things are.
Yeah, but then you got people like Bird or whoever it is that just like throws their fucking freezer in the back of the truck and drives it to location and just it works.
Yeah, no, I don't know if he's just got a good one, just one of the rare
I haven't
ones.
had any issues. Knock on fucking tin.
If you didn't have to access it, you could just spray foam in the entire thing and like make it pretty solid as far as like driving it around. Like, but yeah.
Yeah, but you want it to be able to breathe, right? Like it has to have that exhaust and intake still have air, or you're gonna fucking you're gonna have issues like some people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that's super. I think that like dialing in the mTOR. So would you always want to be around that 400 mark, or would there ever be a reason that you would want to adjust it like cultivar specific, or that's just where you want to be?
I'd go higher. So the whole point of pulling the vacuum is to create sublimation, and there's a vacuum point where when our so at atmospheric pressure, water can exist as a solid, a liquid, or a gas. When you get below this certain point, water can't exist as a liquid anymore. So then as you push it from the solid and you push it to phase change, it goes to a gas and it's sublimating.
Yeah.
So all you have to be is below that vacuum point. True. I would like to be just a little bit below there so I know I'm sublimating at the lowest pressure possible, or the highest pressure possible.
Do you know what that pressure is?
What was that?
Do you know what that pressure is?
Let me look it up. It was in the presentation.
And then are your times getting dragged out? Like, are your dry times going way longer?
Because mine goes to 5. I just looked at it, and it can go down to 5.
So,
but that's like 20 extra
from what
hours.
I observe, it's a little bit longer, but in concept, when you put a pot of water on the stove and you turn it all the way up high, it's going to boil and reach 100 degrees Celsius and stay there plateau until all that water's gone, and then it's going to spike. It doesn't matter, like, and if you put the stove at medium as well, it's still going to hit that same plateau. It's going to reach that plateau faster, and it might push through it a little faster, but it like hits a stabilized temperature while your water's boiling, while the phase change is happening. So
So you're saying
I
put it
don't
to
think it
5 all
slows
the
it
time?
down that much, but I've noticed a little bit, and I've heard some people, if you pour your patties too thick, them having issues.
Yeah.
But that might
Anybody
just
I see
be,
with thick patties for sure is running it like 40 hours, like Triple OG from Ice House Melts, who used to be with Kaya. He
yeah.
runs, it's way fast. But then you have people like Wook Sauce and Alice, and they, like, that's where I got my shit from. They were like, we only run it like 6 hours and 8 hours, or not even 6. I think it was like 3 hours freeze. Then it's like the freeze that the machine does on its own. It's like 11 or 9 hours or whatever that cycle is. And the last, they would only do like 9 hours final dry.
That's
And
crazy.
I know they do a consistency similar to what I do, because I kind of listen to how they described it. And if you get a nice slurry, so there's a lot of liquid in your hash, it'll keep it from clumping up, and it'll allow that water to get out faster. People who are letting all that water drop out, they're scooping it, and it's like dough, and they're slapping in their
No.
trays, and it's clumped up. That's going to take 40 plus hours, and you're still going to have to break it up to get all that.
Like you said, the point is you're sublimating the water out, so it's almost better to have your hash watery. That's my thinking anyway. I never do thick
And then
patties.
it's
We always
fluffier.
sometimes even add water.
You notice if you add a bunch of, I totally add water in the trays, like, to get it to lay flat. But the hash, like, once it's dry, there's more negative space where the water was, because it's kind of similar to my concept on directional freezing. It's actually how we got to directional freezing, was a study we found. But when that water freezes, it's creating a crystalline structure, so it's like putting a negative pore space throughout your hash, and then you're going to remove that, so there's that like negative zone. If you don't have that water, you're not creating that homogenized like airspace essentially when your water's gone, so it like gives it a pathway.
That's why your 40 tray looks fucking like it's floating.
Yeah, and if you
but I'll notice sometimes, and I don't know if that's an issue with before I went to oilless pump, or just having the place I was washing not be cold enough. But I've had a sheet where it doesn't actually sublimate, and it wasn't necessarily a space where it was very thick or where it was like too much hash. And I don't understand why it would do that. And then I'd have to like take everything out that was okay, and then fucking do a whole cycle, or like more freeze and let it do that whole cycle again. And more times than not, it would come out fine after that. But there was times where a third time I had to pull it out, and it wouldn't fucking. It was still like an ice cube of hash, like a little slither. So I just threw that bitch in the freezer and waited till the next time I did a wash, and then threw it in with that one, because I'm like, I'm not running this 3 times in a row, like.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's like the tour, if that was just my environment, but those times I was like, is it happening? Is my fucking freeze dryer like going kaput already?
Was it on the same shelf each time, or did you switch shelves?
No, I always switch shelves, to be honest. Then I thought, you know what? In this moment, I just thought about it. Also, there's that thing Solventless Mind said about your fucking trays. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they start to bend, so they're not actually flat. And then when your tray is sitting in the shelf, it's not making contact with the fucking shelf at certain parts, and then that hash isn't getting the full sublimation,
That makes sense.
That's another one, checking your trays if they're straight.
So when Tom explained all the science in the chat, I started playing with the temperatures myself. So I was generally at 35 degrees because again, I was, not thinking about the vacuum changing the boiling points. So I went down to negative 15, or I mean, I went down to 15, not negative 15. Sometimes I'll still run them at the 35. I don't, whatever. So I set it for 9 hours if it's at 15 degrees, and I set the final dry for 8.5 if it's at 35. So I get like maybe a half hour difference, and I get that where it's like just perfectly dry, to where almost never I get the wet spots, but like it never seems over. Like I don't really get the still frozen spots, but to where it seems like it just finished drying it.
Fuck. I do 45, bro, and like my hash is pretty terpy, but now you're just like.
I do 5 Fahrenheit. I've had multiple people do 5, and then their biggest complaint is the hash is now hard to work because it sticks to everything.
So then, what's your final dry? Like 20 hours?
No, 16, 12 to 16 usually. I nice thin patties. Is the trick. I mean, if I need to do multiple runs, I'll do that. I'm not trying to shove everything in my machine.
So it's just like, half inch, if that.
Yeah. Thinner than that.
What trays are you in? Are you in the big fuckers or the regular ones?
I have a small pharma. So
yeah,
I'm pretty small scale. But I put the batter, like, when I'm getting my hash in the trays, I want it in like a crepe consistency. So it lays out like a crepe. Nice and thin.
Yeah, for sure. Like fucking watery pancake batter. That's how we like it.
Yeah.
I mean, even if I pull a scoop, we're sitting there doing the fucking under tap, right? My partner's there, like.
Yep. Get to lay out. Hell yeah.
Add some water, add a little water, or just take another scoop that has some water in it, and,
Totally.
I feel that. Interesting. So now we're gonna have to try running it colder, because we were running it 35 before, and I found we were having issues with like spots getting, and we were running it longer. I was doing it the opposite. I would run it like 18 hours final dry at 35, and I would still be getting shit fucked up. Like, I don't even know why. In retrospect now, it should have been, But the one thing I noticed is, like, if I run cured material, the way we're doing it, I can run it 6 hours and it's fine, final dry. So if we're doing like splitter smalls cured 70 to 150, and then the 40 and 150 separate batches, I can run it 6-7 hours maybe to be like sure, and it's perfect, it's fine, But anything live, we're doing 9 to 10 hours final dry right now. Nice. And I haven't had any issues.
Nice. That's dope.
In the summer, we did an ice cream cake, and it was before I had moved the dryer used to be in another room. So we used to have to fucking bring the tray into one room where we're washing and then go and run it into the other. So when I was taking it out to collect it, I didn't get it into the other room fast enough, and even the other room wasn't cold enough. And all the hash just was instantly melting, So I had to like put it back in, do a whole other run, cycle, and then like when it was done this time, bring it and go right into my freezer and just collect it in the fucking freezer, like.
Oh yeah.
Just because it was July or whatever,
Yep. I do that. I've rushed to get it into its bag.
Because I don't have like a cold room,
Oh shit. Yeah.
I have, well, in the winter I just open the window, and we wash in like 10 degrees. So from like November till March, April, just run that air in from outside. But after that, we're running an AC, but it's just not strong enough. I need to get a stronger one.
Yeah.
So Tom, is when you're Dutch cold rooms are for bitches. Your toxic coffee and donuts, is the freeze dryer fluctuation in temperature the only thing that you touch on, or are there other things that you touch on in that talk?
No, so I mean, Mikey can tell you, it starts pretty chemistry heavy. A lot of it is what I've learned in chemistry classes, and I've applied it to. I've talked a bunch to my chemistry teachers about freeze drying, but it gets into what the different phases of matter are, what phase change is, right? What pushes a phase change, and then like there's these phase diagrams which shows your relation of temperature and pressure, and you can find out on that graph what phase you're in based off the given temperature and pressure. And then it kind of runs through using that diagram like what's happening in your freeze dryer. So it's a visual with charts, and then
Very
kind of
cool.
explaining what's pushing, or why is what's happening.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, and then it gets into like the next day, it breaks into an explanation of how to find adjusted boiling points. So how do you find the exact boiling point of water at 400 mTOR?
Is that a mathematical calculation?
It's a chart. It's a nomograph.
Interesting.
So what was funny, and I use the same. I actually can pull it up right now. I use the same example, but when I was talking to Mark Scaldone about adjusted boiling points, he gave me an example that THC has been misreported on its boiling point for a long time. Right? So what happened was a bunch of these labs were looking at Ralph A. McShulam's work when he isolated THC, and there is a published boiling point. What they didn't take notice of is there's a published vacuum. They all ignored that. So I can actually pull up that example. Let me see.
I was actually super surprised when Tom was talking about the actual boiling point of THC. I was just like, repeat that, bro.
So in Ralph's work, the boiling point he published was 155 Celsius. And then after that, it doesn't say vacuum or anything. You just kind of have to know. It says 0.05 millimeters of mercury, which is how they take vacuum pressures, and torr equals millimeters of mercury, right? So then when you take it to a nomograph and you plug in the boiling point and the vacuum pressure, you then connect the dots, and there's a line in between, and that's your adjusted boiling point line, and it crosses right through that at 420 Celsius.
That's what? That's
I
wild.
could flip this.
Red hots, bro. Get your glowers ready.
Here's
That's
the
insane,
work,
bro.
right?
Yeah, that's like 881 degrees for us Americans.
Yeah,
Somewhere around there.
It's 7 something. So, but then
Okay,
what's
7
happening
something.
in our rig is you're putting a carb cap on and you're pulling a vacuum. So you're lowering your boiling point. So you don't have to hit it at 760 or whatever it is. You hit it lower.
Oh, I see.
And that's why when you pull deep, or you put your finger over the carb hole on your carb cap, and you can get it to rip harder, because you just pulled a deeper vacuum and you lowered your boiling points.
That's
Science
very
dabs,
cool.
bro. Science
Bro. That's wild,
Seriously.
bro.
I was amazed when he said that. Like,
Yeah, bro.
So, Mikey, I found the boiling point, or sorry, the vacuum that water no longer exists as liquid.
okay.
And so what was funny is I didn't actually know this until I was doing the presentation, but I was also doing my bio homework. And I was doing a lab where they're talking about how we search for water on other planets. And how we do it is we look for an atmosphere. Because without an atmosphere, you can't have water because you don't have pressure. Everything would just be solid or ice. So that's kind of what, like, they're solid or gas. That's what pushed me. But the Tor, it's 4.5 Tor. So what was that 4,500 mTOR? So it's a lot higher than what we're running. But the issue is, I don't think harvest rights will allow. I think they have to be below like 700. You know this better than I do.
Fucking Ginger Lark posted that 4.5 tour in the thing like a while back.
Ha, funny, I missed that.
Hmm.
Oh, he has my presentation. That's how. I was like, how the fuck?
Oh, cheater, bro. Cheating on your homework, man. Sorry.
Yeah, but I'm excited to build out the crystallization talk, and I like have a good understanding of the science, but Mikey has the application.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have as much ability to fuck up hash as he has.
Yeah. You need
I
the
fucked up
ability
one
to.
jar. I was like, I don't like that.
Yeah. No. I know
Yeah,
the feeling, man.
lots of them. My most recent one was like 30 grams of first wash. Select like fucking really, 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 really nice, bro. And now like fucking there, like look at it. Look how beautiful the fucking stuff is in there, right? It's like this golden, fucking amazing tasting cart juice. Like,
That's
yeah,
so funny. So is
yeah, I
Mikey?
mean,
Say, Mikey, is your talk at Coffee and Donuts? Was that just on forming large crystals, or what? Did you cover any
so
other
it was
topics?
it was just kind of the whole general process of jar tech for larger faucets, from sugar to diamonds, and talking a little bit more in depth about how I go through that heating and cooling process for the chirp retention.
Sure.
And also, like, I did have a video that we played. It was just a little blurry, so it was a little hard to see. But I had a meltdown to where you're taking your meltdown to a wet batter. It wasn't a full one for diamonds, so I had at least a little bit of visual reference, which is cool. I have 6 years like professional R&D background, as well as I've developed multiple products myself for my own LLCs that I've ran. And so like when I was developing fertilizer for the aquascaping thing, which I just posted on my story not too long ago, I had to do side by sides for like CO2, par, fertilizer level. Everything was ran off distilled water. Like it was, everything had to be exact so I could compare my stuff to the people I was making a product against. And that was kind of my first like in depth into R&D. But then after that, I started doing design engineering for a super large corporation that does like international stuff. So I was used to breaking shit to learn, and that's how I learn best, anyways, is through fucking things up and not fucking them up again. So, mhm.
That's dope, man. That's fucking awesome. I think that having like that experience on like a huge scale is super powerful to like understand like where this can go and how how you can break things down and improve them. So I think that that's super dope.
So like having someone like Tom to talk to is fucking amazing for me, right? Because so whatever, my family responsibilities are extremely large for one person. I won't get too big into that, but my time and everything, like, dude, anytime I'm not being a responsible family person, I'm working. Night, day, doesn't fucking matter. I wake up in the middle of the night and gotta go in around my room and gotta do some stuff. So most of this is all application for me. And sometimes I have a hard time sitting at a desk reading things. Like if an expert or someone who is super well in depth in the information that they're explaining to me can explain that to me, I can take that in very well. But if I have to do the research where I'm going through books rather than working with my hands and seeing and experiencing things, it doesn't transfer as well. So him
Same.
being able to quantify some of the things that like or just give me information that then I can apply and see how it does has been super great for me.
I can relate to that for sure, man. If I could see it being done, I know I can do it too, and have a better understanding rather than like the literature sometimes can just not be as descriptive as somebody who's already done it.
Right? That's like, I can pick things up when I see someone else physically do them, but picturing that process in my head, like there's just too many variables a lot of times unless I've visually seen it. So I just, you know, I do much better with application than creating theory.
For sure.
I think I got lucky and just had good chemistry teachers who were down to talk hash making with me.
I couldn't imagine out here on the East Coast.
So you're saying set
really
my shelf temp.
I just talked the processes. And I talk all sorts of other processes, and they would just smile and then answer my questions. It was beautiful.
That's great, man.
Dope, man. I think you just got like a warm way about you, Tom, and you're just like, what about this and that? And then they're like, before they know it, they're talking hash, and you're like, yeah, okay, we're gonna go apply these things.
I actually, one of my classes, they were talking sublimation and like phase change essentially, and she noticed that no one was listening. So she stopped the class and had me talk about how I use sublimation to dry my hash.
Oh,
Everyone started listening.
And everybody started listening. That's so funny. That's hilarious. Are there any other things like, like until I talked to you, I never even thought about the freeze dryer fluctuations or anything. And now like I'm like, yo, we as hash makers, like we talk about the friggin' paddle we use. Like, does it have holes in it or not? We're always, have our own style, but like we have these units and we're not even, tailoring them at all to our needs. So I think that's super cool. But are there any other things that you're like looking at the hash process that you're like, I want to explore more about this part of it? Or you've dialed in on the freeze dryer right now?
No, I wouldn't say I'm dialed in. I still want to be able to tighten my curve, and I want to figure out ways to like stabilize the temperatures more, because if you look at the graphs, they fluctuate a lot.
Yeah.
And then the whole curing and crystallization process, like, so interesting. I feel like I know something and then I try to do it and it never works out how I think and how it should work. But then like everything happens differently because it's not a basic crystallization. There's so many substances in there, it complicates it.
Yeah, true.
So if you set your shelf temperature lower and you're not burning off certain terps, is that going to equate to a bigger yield too? Because now that hash hasn't lost whatever weight, liquid weight, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I know.
I wonder, like, like, is it's an important question. If I've been running at a certain temperature and then I try a whole colder temperature, who knows what could happen? Besides,
if you change your pump oil and you're smelling terpenes, you shouldn't. Like, I had people telling me their runoff smells like terpenes, and I was thinking about it. Mine doesn't. Mine just smells like water.
Oh, mine.
Depending on the strain,
yeah, no.
Mine will.
And that's like, I mean, the other thing, you could set up a cold trap, but what I would rather do is not volatilize those compounds. I want to target water, and common practice of distillation is you need a difference of 30 degrees to create separation by distillation. That's why I don't really try with humulene, because it's too close to water. So you're probably taking it over together. But that's, you want to be below that 30-degree point so you're not hitting the boiling point of that terpene.
Yeah. Well, we're watching GMO on Wednesday, so
Nice, yeah.
Thursday.
You're just adding more water. That's just asked. So very base. My machine runs around 304 on mTOR. What temp do you set plates at?
I don't see any of that.
I would set them at 5. So if you're at 5 Fahrenheit, which is Ginger's right, which is the lowest my unit goes. The newer ones don't go that low. I think it's like 35.
Mine
But
goes to 5. I just checked it.
perfect. Yeah, for that one, set it down to 5. And let me
Okay.
but at that point, at 400 mTOR, pinene, which is one of the more volatile terpenes of the ones I looked at, is boiling at, I'm going to double check, but I believe it's 14 Fahrenheit.
And I'm not that big a fan of pinene, bro. So that's why I'm at 15 right there, you know, trying to get it out of there.
Well, you need to be at 50 to get rid of limonene.
Bro, I'll put it at 75 if I can get rid of limonene.
Let's see. If we're at 400 mTOR, so pinene, pinene at 400 mTOR is boiling at 23 Fahrenheit, and then you have camphene at 26, and then pinene, beta pinene's at 35. So if you're at 5, you're, what's that, 18 degrees lower than pinene's boiling point, so you're at a better chance of not boiling it off.
Mm-hmm. But then how many extra hours are you adding to a final dry at that point, you know?
Personally, with my thinner trays, I haven't added extra time.
Meaning, what was your time
concept
before?
with the water. If you have a pot of water and you're boiling it and it's at 100 Fahrenheit, it's going to boil at the same rate as if you turned it up. What's going to happen is once that water's gone, now that pot temperature can spike. Right? So the rate of phase change is the same. I'm pretty sure, in my understanding, the rate of phase change is the same. And then once that water's gone, the one that's on high is going to spike a lot faster and you're going to lose a lot more volatiles, where the other one that's on medium isn't going to burn your pot. You're not going to lose as many terpenes.
So how many hours are you running your final dry normally? Would you say
Depends on volume. Depends on volume of how much hash I put in, how much water I put in. My thin trays that I do, I'm usually between 12 and 16 hours final dry. And I'll skip the small batch sometimes, so I'll be done in like 20 hours.
Interesting. I may have to try this week and
Me
fuck up some
personally,
hash.
I found that working on the consistency of like that, you know, thin milkshake, pancake batter, crepe, whatever you want to say, was my best thing with not finding any more frozen spots, because I was always kind of right at that edge of like, when I first started out, I would get a decent amount of little pieces that I would have to either then air dry or throw back in, but they would just be little tiny chunks that won't make it through the sieve. And I found that even within the solution that's on the tray, you have to be careful, because sometimes it can come out looking like it's an even patty. But if you didn't scoop that where the water to hash ratio was very similar, you may have like some really thick chunks that are just even with the top. And then it may not, may not freeze dry all at the same rate. So,
And that's at 35.
So that was originally at 35, and now that's at 15 for the most part. And at 15, with either running at the same time as I did the 35, or just an additional half hour, because I used to just take off a half hour. Sometimes I forget to do that. Like Tom says, it does run at about the same time, and just from improving my consistency, I don't get those frozen chunks even at the lower temperature now.
Yeah.
That's game right there, gentlemen. Ladies.
This shows that concept of the plateau. This is, what is this? This is a heating curve of water. You have temperatures there. You can see when it's red, you're moving up to a phase change. And then you hit 0 Celsius, so you start melting. That's that blue line, and it's plateaued. Once all of that has phase changed and it can start increasing temperature, you hit this plateau. So that's the point where your rate should be pretty similar. And then once all that water's gone, if you have more energy, it's going to spike up faster.
And your theory is having it lower is going to have a less spike, right?
Yeah, you have less entropy. You'll have less entropy to push the phase change.
Okay.
You have
I
less
might throw
heat
it down to
applied to the
15.
system.
Throw it down to 15. Give it a good 12 hours. Final dry.
So yeah.
Why not?
And you can always add more time. I would rather pull it early and check it than run it long and be like bummed.
How do you pull it early and check it without having to reset the whole?
You just my unit does this. I don't know about the new ones, but on my unit I can hit. I'm pretty sure I just hit cancel, and then it allows me to check. You know, if I'm done with drying, and it asks me that prompt, done with drying, defrost, or add more time. You just add more time.
So in the middle of your middle cycle, I don't know what you want to call that, but
Yeah, yeah,
the heating cycle, you'll hit cancel, take out
yep,
your vac, check it, and then you'll just do more dry time. It'll go back into that, right?
yep. I have a cold room right next to it, so I'm not checking it out in an exposed element. I'm getting it into a room that's 32 degrees, sometimes 30. So I'm not worried about it caking out. So if you're checking in a room that's warm because of your freeze dryer that's running and heating the room, that might give you issues. Um, I can also get my room, the freeze dryer's in, pretty cold, so I can open the door, pull my trays and peek and just poke at it with a clean dab tool and then close it. Didn't realize I was still flipped around. And then I just kick the vacuum back on.
And it knows, right? Like there's some sort of sensor in there that
Mine's
understands.
older, and I'm pretty sure it just goes off time. It
So
might
when
have
you
a sensor,
restart
but
it, it goes back to doing the 11-hour cycle or whatever of.
no, it usually I click a button that says add more time, and it's usually I think preset around 4 hours, and I'll run 6 hours and see what happens. I'll adjust that based on how much ice or how much was still frozen.
Mine does the same thing, but when you add the more time, it's preset at 9 hours. So I have to take some off.
Yeah, it's like a 9-hour cycle or something, right? And then it goes to that last cycle, which is your final dry, which is just cold in the vacuum now without the oven on, right?
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, fuck now I'm like, how much hash could have been terpier? That wasn't terpy. Fuck, I suck. I'm a shitty hash maker. Fucking, what would that 8.1% GMO been at a lower shelf temp? Would it have been a 9? Would it have been just terpier?
Terpier.
I mean, it was pretty fucking terpy already. I don't know, I'm not gonna lie.
Maybe you pulled it out before you lost terpenes.
Yeah, I don't know it's a huge difference. I just know it's a small difference. And like it seems like the much more delicate strains, you might pick up on the difference a bit more. But also like Tom was saying, those lower temperatures, like that's I grow a lot of stuff from seed and I run plenty of greasy stuff that like that first wash doesn't even like to go through a sieve if you're in if you're not at like 30 degrees. I'm jealous of Tom's temperatures. My room in the winter is like a 38 to 40. And in the summer it's like a 40 to 45. My cold room. Currently, I've had a split unit ordered since fucking June of last year. So whenever that actually comes in, it should be able to pull down to his temps. But yeah. So anyways, the when you lower the temp, it will make it like more delicate. Where you might have to work with it faster to get it into the bags or to get it through the sieve or anything like that. Which to me is also if you're throwing that into a jar, then as full melt, which I'm not much a melt guy, but like that's gotta be more beautiful than the stuff that like is sandier when you're throwing it in there.
No, it's all going to rosin, right? That's.
No, I keep something out, and how I do it, I don't sieve it. I put it into a vacuum sealed bag as quick as possible. It in parchment, and I store it in my freezer, and it will keep it in that sand form. So when it's there, I have a sample that I'm going and smoking and testing and seeing if I want to keep it as melt or not. And then I can go back and work it, and it's the same consistency as it was in the freeze dryer because it never left freezing conditions. So I'll like, I set up my bag, fold my parchment, tear that, write all the information down, and then I pull one tray at a time, right into my cold room that's 30 degrees. I pull the parchment, pour it into the bag, vac seal it straight into the freezer, and take a small sample to smoke while doing that. And then if you want to break it up and have it look sandy, once it drops to your freezer temp, inside the freezer, like you were saying, you work inside the freezer, you can just kind of bust up the bag and like move, not roughly, but you can kind of crinkle the bag around and break up the hash. And since it's so cold, they'll just fall apart and turn to sand.
I just take a fucking card and I fucking break it up in the tray. Then I grab it like a giant taco, like fucking Solving This Mind. I learned that all from Solving This Mind, and just dip it into the fucking wherever it's going, the receptacle, and it just whoosh, and as it hits the fucking jar or container, it just your sieve. That's your sieve right there. You don't need to sieve it.
Yep.
The less you touch it, the better.
If you can you send Dutch the old firmware that is able to get lower?
Yeah. If he goes to the Hashishans website, in the community, in the forums, you can find it in there. And I opened it up so like everyone can see everything now.
Okay. Awesome.
So what is that? What is that?
That's the Hashishin, the podcast.
No, what does that firmware do? That version of the.
It allows you to drop your shelf temp.
Yeah.
So like you have the older firmware and you can drop it down.
Yeah.
But if you have a newer unit, I think from like July of 21 on, you have to reach out to the company and they have to give you an old screen and an old USB port because they changed it so you can't downgrade the newer machines.
I have a large sitting at warehouse with
not helping is not interested in helping that demographic of their consumers for sure.
No.
They're about making food and fruit and fucking candy and survivalist. You ever try to vac seal your jars using your freeze dryer?
No. I always want pressure in my jar, not a vacuum.
Like there's a way to do it for canned goods or whatever. You put the jar in there with just hand tightened, and then you turn on you don't turn it on, you just plug in the pump for like 10 seconds.
Pull it back.
Fucking so if you want to vac seal your jars of hash or whatever.
That's dope.